Hi guys and welcome. Today I'm going to compare the Jolla versus the Moto G. Both these phones are pretty cool and reasonably priced, so here we go. So with the dimensions and weight, the Jolla is about 9.9mm thick, or 10mm, and weighs 140 grams. This is pretty reasonable, I'd say, nothing too radical. It's pretty light, but it is slightly on the thick side. If we see the Moto G, it's 11.6mm and weighs 143 grams. Honestly, 11.6 is not a big difference, but it is a lot thicker in my opinion. Both these, as I said, both these devices are very light, but I think the Moto G is slightly too thick for my liking. If we move on with the display, the Jolla has a 4.5-inch 540p display at about 145 ppi. It's pretty good size, I'd say, but 540p is a bit of a letdown, I'd say. Most of these new devices are now HD, full HD, or just 720p, so honestly this is slightly a bit of a letdown. You will be able to see some pixelization with some of the icons there, but it's a price you've got to pay. With the Moto G, it also has a 4.5-inch display, but this is 720p, so it is HD, and that's about 326 ppi. For me, I personally think that's pretty good, although it isn't the world's biggest display, let's say. Both these displays are reasonable sized, so 720p will look pretty good on the Moto G. It should be pretty good for gaming, movies, videos, etc. But speaking of videos, we got the camera and video. So the Jolla has an 8 megapixel camera recording 1080p at 30 frames per second, or it also has a 2 megapixel camera recording 720p. This is pretty standard for a smartphone, I'd say. Pretty average. 8 megapixel, brilliant for shooting video, shooting photos and stuff, sorry. But most of these new ones are slightly more to 13 megapixels, but there you go. 1080p, 720p, great for taking videos, video calling. It's just pretty good. The Moto G, however, has a 5 megapixel camera, which is pretty bad, I'd say. The shots aren't that great, but it'll do if you're just taking a few just pics. But if you're like a photographer or something, nah. Also, it does 720p recording on both cameras, which is also a letdown. So non-full HD, but HD nonetheless. And the secondary is 1.3 megapixels. Moving on with the memory and storage. The Jolla has 1GB of RAM and comes in 16GB versions only. This is upgradable, however, up to 64GB via an SD card, which is useful, something the Moto G does not have. So the Moto G has 1GB of RAM as well, and comes in 8 and 16GB versions. So once you hit the max, you've pretty much hit the max. As you know, with the Nexuses and Motos, they don't really put SD cards in at all. So it is another letdown here, but there you go. If we move on to the chipset and CPU now. The Jolla has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 processor and is dual core at 1.4 GHz, so it should pretty much fly through the OS, games, etc. etc. The Moto G is Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 also, and is quad core at 1.2 GHz. So the Moto G is slightly faster, I'd say, with 4 cores powering it, and you really shouldn't see any lag, especially with Android really. Finally, with the battery and OS. The Jolla is running Sailfish OS, which is a brand new OS. It's sort of an updated version from MeeGo. The Jolla is pretty much made from ex-Nokia employees. It's a Finnish company, and they've just took MeeGo a step further. It's all gesture-based. There's no physical buttons on the front of the screen, but it should be pretty cool. It's also going to take a bit of a learning curve to get used to, though. It has a 2100 mAh battery, so it should get way more than a day, and it is removable, so you can swip and swap it. Also, the backs are removable too, so you can also customize it. The Moto G is running Android Jelly Bean, which is upgradable to KitKat, so it should be on the latest version if you get it, you'll have to update it to the latest version, and has a 2070 mAh battery, so this should fly past the day, I would have thought. So that's the battery and OS. I'm going to leave the trailers on in a mo. I'm going to see you at the end of the video. Ciao.
Who are we? A state of mind. Funky with the rhymes, I'm positively inclined. And the tailor of the wax got the tracks that's refined. One of a kind. Sit back and recline. Yo, it's the W-A, X to the Taylor. Combined with the crew that brought you cosmic flames. Stay
So those were the two trailers. What do you think of these devices? Comment all your thoughts below in the comments section. In the description there are any links that you may need, or websites, etc. Top right corner, I'm going to give out a shout out to my mate Stan. He does FIFA and COD videos. He uploads quite regularly and he's pretty cool. So if you want, you can go check him out as well. Below on screen really, you got two of my other videos, the LG G Flex and the Oculus Rift. So that's the end of the video, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.